all the connections that you've made with the WHO and Fauci and all these webs that get aligned. It just goes back to my question, which maybe there's no answer for it. There's probably no answer for it.
What is the motivation? Well, just look at the complex feeding itself. The Gates Foundation makes a strategic investment in BioNTech. A biotech company has never had a product before. And boom, they have this incredible joint product with a major U.S. pharmaceutical company for the very first inoculation December 10th. Gates Foundation makes a gazillion on that investment. 9 out of the 10 last FDA commissioners, they work in the complex. So Scott Gottlieb, one of my contemporaries, former FDA commissioner, he works for the big blue pharmaceutical company and advising people on CNBC to take it in the arm. He's a former FDA commissioner. Stephen Hahn, the one who was in power, who blocked treatments, he works for Flagship, the venture capital firm for Moderna. The top public health director in the UK works directly for Moderna. The top public health director for Denmark now works for the company. So what happened is these people in these positions must have been contacted by one of these entities and said, you know what, if you do a good job for us, we've got a very lucrative job for you in a year or two. Jeremy Farrar, who was the lead scientist at Rockefeller Foundation, where is he now? He's the lead scientist for the WHO. They're big time. They're probably one of the main coordinating centers in this syndicate. Rick Bright, who was in the White House, he fought so we could not release the stockpile of HCQ out to people, a vital drug to treat it. He now works for the Rockefeller Foundation. They're in the complex. So these NGOs are very important because they can't be regulated. They can invest in things and they're not for profit, so they can actually really, reap tremendous profits. They can have incredible influence on things. They can really grease the wheel. They can hold planning exercises. They can actually purchase product and distribute it. The NGOs are important. We think this biopharmaceutical complex, as I've outlined, controls trillions of dollars. It's limitless what they can do. They influence agencies. So we know government agencies were inside social media. They came out in Missouri versus Biden. So the FBI, the CIA, and other agencies in the intelligence community and the CDC have officers and people either inside Twitter or electronically inside Twitter monitoring the feeds. So I got a FOIA on myself. I said, well, who's monitoring me? I have the biggest doctor account in Twitter of specialty doctors who see patients. I'm like a prize, right? So I would have a tweet on something, on some part of the immune system early in 2021. Emails. Dr. McCullough just tweeted this. What do you think he means? And you could see the operatives go back and forth. I said, oh my gosh. Who's listening to this right now? You better believe somebody's assigned to me. Many people are assigned to me. Anybody who's a dissident voice is going to be listened to, is going to be censored, will have pressures applied in all different ways. Your jobs, if the jobs don't matter, it'll just keep going and going and going. This is no different than Nazi Germany. But nobody will stand in the way of this narrative. Not even presidential candidates will stand in the way of this narrative. The narrative is there is a new sheriff in town. There is a new world order. When Klaus Schwab wrote the book and said, is the opportunity to reset a new world order, he was very serious. He said, listen, it's not going to be about countries anymore. It's going to be about borderless countries. There's going to be tremendous control from central nerve centers, probably this complex being one of them. They're very well coordinated. When he wrote his book in 2017, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, he said, listen, there's going to be a revolution. It's not going to be machines this time or computers. The environment's going to, is going to stay the same. The human body and mind is going to change. That's the Fourth Industrial Revolution. the motivation by those who are speaking for the complex, and I think Klaus Schwab is one, I think Tedros Ghebreyesus is another, I think Bill Gates is another, Yuval Harari, you can probably round them up. They're relatively visible. Everything seems to be open. There's the theme. One of the themes is too many useless eaters. Too many people. There's a perception there's too many people on this earth. God, you just fly across Canada and you show me the people. Fly across the coast of Australia and you find hundreds of miles. You can't find a single person on the beach. I can't imagine somebody would come up with that notion, but there's a notion that that's the case. There's also a notion that we should move to the collective as opposed to the individual. Now, the collective has been part of Eastern societies for a long, long time. Chinese, if you're been to China 5 times, spent a lot of time with the Chinese, they really believe in the collective. And they think that individualism offers some threat to the collective. Here in the United States, we're about as individualistic as you can get. We're going to go out and blaze a new trail. We're going to, build new greatness everywhere we go. So individualism and collectivism are at odds with one another. The Great Reset and this new world order says the collective is going to predominate here. And we see just, it's not just the pandemic and its response. We've seen farmers in Europe, just up in arms. The European Commission had said, listen, we don't have enough green space. So we need to set aside a percentage of green space, of which the farmers did. So, most countries, let's take the Netherlands as an example, almost all of it is kind of on farms. It's either in cities or farms. So they set aside some large proportion, I think 20% or more, for green space. And they did it. Okay, that was several years ago. And then this New World Order, whoever influences the European Commission, said that's not enough. The nitrogen that's kind of running down onto the green space is changing the plant flora of the green space. And it's largely the manure from the cows that it's actually pretty healthy manure. It's just kind of hyper-fertilizing the green space, and so the plants are changing. That's changing the natural ecostructure. So therefore, we have to reduce the amount of farms with cows on them. And that's where now all these countries started to have these new rules. We can't have so many cows. You can't have so many acres assigned to livestock. This happened across the Netherlands. It happened across Germany in part. It happened across Ireland. And you saw protests, really pretty wild protests where the farmers were spraying manure on buildings, blocking roads. So this complex, this biopharmaceutical complex that we've identified, it's not just infectious diseases. It's farming. It is clearly something about climate. This is really interesting. Do you know that there are people in this world who absolutely believe the existential threat to humanity is global warming?
Of course.
Now, I don't know about your circles, but my circles is that 99% of those people who believe that, they're on the left. If it's an existential crisis, why would this be politically on one side of something? For an existential crisis, something that's going to wipe us out, right? I think everybody would care about that. Do you know that virtually every country in the world has a border crisis right now? Every country. Not just the United States, not just the southern border. This is not a United States thing. Canada has a border crisis. They've declared it. Quebec's got a border crisis. I was over in France and Germany last year. They both have border crises. People are worried about it. They have heads in their hands, fretting about the border crisis. Sweden had a mass protest about a border crisis. Now, Norway and Finland have border crises. The whole world has a border crisis at once. Now, 99% of the people I know who are really, really worried about the border crisis as an existential threat to the United States are on the right. How can that be if there's really a border crisis? How can the climate crisis be all the way on the left and the border crisis be all on the right? How can that be? And how can it be worldwide? I think it's so interesting. These are some of the most interesting sociological phenomena. But I think it's wrapped up in this biopharmaceutical complex and the motivations, this infectious disease that's spreading from mind to mind to mind. It is really, this is the time to be a sociologist and just watch this play out.
If you like that clip, click the one that's on the screen now, and I promise you, you'll enjoy it just the same, if not more.